Hello, beautiful people, you wonderful stars. It is another Esoteric Tea with my girlfriend Allison here. I'm so excited that I'm starting to actually do interviews again and starting to do Esoteric Teas. And Allison, you might see more than just once because she is so willing to help me. It's not as easy to find people to help. So thank you, Miss Allison. Welcome to Stars of the Morning Light. Anyone, if this is your first time popping in, welcome. We do a lot of great things here, a lot of great teachings from the Emerald Tablets to this kind of stuff. If this is your first time seeing an Esoteric Tea or listening in the background as you clean your house or paint your walls, as Allison was just talking about, she is here to interview me. I'm Courtney, the host of Stars on the Morning Light. Well-versed in a lot of esoteric jazz, right? A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Nugget of mine. And it was kind of requested, also coming to my full attention about August, September, that when I go off on tangents, people don't necessarily follow them as well as I would like. So Allison's here to interview me so she can also go, hey, Courtney, slow it down. What are you talking about? So welcome, Allison. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
And this really is like a good community of good people. And I think you know that. I think even with just all that Stars of the Morning Light does. And so I'm happy.
I think, yeah, subject matter draws a certain type of person to it in the first place, whether, you know, they just kind of started their path, they're still kind of broken in ways, or they've been on it for, you know, decades and they're just ready to help and like support and love, you know, but you'll run into the lot. But everybody's like, I feel like if you're on this path, then you already kind of have like a place in your heart to be empathetic, sympathetic, and like listen and be open-minded and not like quick to judge, you know, because those are all the things I feel like we're trying to like stop in ourselves.
Yeah. I even last night I was doing some social media and one of the hashtags I did was, you know, remain open-minded or stay open-minded or, you know, always be learning type thing. Cause definitely we have to, including myself. I mean, I'm not, you know, disconnected to the concept of always learning. Right.
No, yeah, it's absolute. And I think it should never stop. I somewhere saw a meme and I just love it because it was a spiral and it was like, this is what our life experience and learning experience is about. You know, it's not a straight line. You keep coming back to things and you learn deeper reasons and meanings. And like that just stuck with me because it makes us feel less like failures when we keep coming up against the same stuff, you know, like if we understand that like we're supposed to like hit this wall again, but like hit it in a different spot, you know?
Yeah, hit it in a different spot. Yeah, okay, I like how you put that.
It just gave me like a sense of like, I'm not a failure if I keep coming back to the same issues and problems and being like, why am I here again? You know, you're there again because you're supposed to like do something different, you know, zoom out and like take a moment and like do something different.
You know, and it's interesting. So lately, I kind of been on a kick, probably because of, you know, what Aries is doing in the sky right now and all sorts of stuff, which is probably past by the time this airs. But I've been a little bit argumentative in my own head. I haven't voiced it out to people, but I've been in kind of a kick in my own head of wanting to tell the world, I guess, you know, Courtney always wants to tell the world stuff, that, you know, we're here on this planet as a learning school, as a training ground, as to do that, to learn and experience and grow. And we chose to be here. And what I'm starting to see, well, I've always seen it, but it's kind of more amplified right now, is that people start getting so fixated on learning the esoteric and trying to figure all that stuff out when they haven't even become decent humans and figured out just basic human stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Like, water for the people in the back.
That's the first step. I mean, just common decency, putting yourself on some kind of human routine of, any spiritual growth. And many philosophies talk about this. It comes from study, meditation, and service.
Humbling
The whole,
yourself. Yeah.
yes. Like, I mean, so it's like we're trying to, pass the buck, or we're trying to move real far ahead, when it's like, come on, everybody, including myself, everybody, let's just be good humans first.
Yeah.
And then so much is revealed. Then so much you understand. Because a lot of our learning here is attached to all of the esoteric. You see what I'm saying? So it's, I've been on a kick in my own head about, come on, humans, let's just be human, like
Well, I
genuine
think
human for a minute.
you're kind of almost like doing the same preach that I've heard about, like in the church setting, of like walking
Walking the
as
path.
walking the path, instead of just like doing things for show, or just being
Right,
caught up in the ceremonies of things, but you're
right,
not really like doing what is being taught.
right.
And that's
Exactly.
kind of like what, I'm hearing in a different way, is like, if you're really looking and reading these things, put them into action in your own
But
world first,
yes,
like
yeah,
that's all you can really do in the world, is like your own little
you're,
bubble.
yeah, it starts with self. And it's so many people are, let's figure out what time is, let's figure out what this is, let's figure out what that is, especially a few weeks ago, it was time and space were like, those concepts were just all over people's mouths everywhere,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what it is. And I'm thinking, your own time and space is here on earth. Let's figure that out right now. Let's figure out how to navigate just being here. I mean, for it really is, a lot of it all does come down to our relationship to the earth and our relationships with each other. It's all energy. And so it's I'll get off that soapbox at some point, but it's just been very much in my mind, and sometimes not in the nicest form in my mind. So therefore, I don't say it that way.
Yeah.
I'm much more gentle, when I actually do deliver something, because it really is that. I mean, if your life is still chaotic, and your life is, not of sound mind and body, and you're scatterbrained, and you're this and you're that, you're not going to catch any of the true learning anyways of the esoteric world. You're just
No,
not. It's going
it
to all
hits different. Yeah.
constant battle with it, So anyway, Miss Allison, do you have a question for me? I got to say my time, I guess.
All right. Well, we talked about where we should begin with all of this, and it came up that possibly how we met, which was I looked up your services, and I had booked a session for your quantum timeline healing, I believe
Yeah,
is what it's called, just because I'd never run across that before, that term and
yeah,
anything. And like, I'm always like yeah, let's go do that kind of person. And I was really interested. And I find that like, and I was in a place in my life where everything was kind of like on a plateau, and I was just not really having any kind of inspirations or breakthroughs or any kind of thing happening. And I found that when I step out and do something like that, like it kind of like snowballs into other things.
right, right.
So it just shook things up. So I thought we could talk about that, just because that was crazy. And I don't know how many people, when I was Googling it, it's not very like all over, you
Well,
know?
I will say, so for a short time when you did it, I did title it Quantum Timeline Cleanse, because quantum became, you know, the
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 trendy term or
the
something.
trendy term, which
Hmm.
is actually not the right term for any of that kind of stuff. Um, Quantum actually just means you can count it. I mean, it
Right.
doesn't anything that of why it's trendy right now. And that kind of wore on me of like, ooh, Courtney, you're entitling this to so you can get that, you know, buzzword in there. It's not accurate. It wore on me for like a few months. And so I actually changed it to more of a proper title
Oh,
for it.
cool.
Because yeah, I mean, I'll try occasionally to be like, you know, in with the masses and get with the trends to see if it, you know, plays out right in my life. But honestly, if it wears on me, if it
Yeah, if it
doesn't
doesn't, yeah.
right, yeah, I'll change it up. So honestly, what it really is a karmic timeline cleanse. It's I'm going in. Wow. Okay, so I guess we'll have to talk about it, guys. I do want to say real quick, Allison is an amazing artist. She's
Oh,
an
thank you.
amazing artist. So when she says, you know, she kind of plateaued and there was lack of I think right behind me.
Yeah, I
This is
saw it when you
Allison.
went, yeah.
This is Allison right here. Sweetie, when I go back and this gets up, I will put a link to your Etsy shop. Okay.
I gotta make sure that that's all, yeah, that my links are
Well,
still good. Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. We'll get that figured out. This is Allison right here. She's an amazing artist, guys. So I love working with artists because it's like, oh, I'm blocking. It's like, oh, we're gonna take care of that. You know.
Color and bright and yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna bring the art back.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How did it work out for you before we maybe go into exactly what was going on?
Um, it was interesting in the fact that like I was into listening, to just being completely open to everything, you know?
Mhm.
Um, even just as recent as when we first met, I think I was really immature, like in the ego of thinking, you know, like I had sent my girlfriend to you and like my husband, and they all had like really cool experiences, you know, and
Yeah.
mine was cool, but it just didn't seem to um, like maybe I was blocked at that time or something. Like I just didn't feel like I was feeling as much as I should have. Although at one point I started crying out of nowhere.
Mhm.
But what I thought was really interesting and how I knew we were on track with something is how for all of my stops we made, I wanted to put jokes and laughter and like funny stuff in there along with whatever else, but that stuck with me was like, um, because that's me still. That's somewhere like in the essence of like who I am on the soul level, like is
Yeah.
likes to laugh, likes to cut jokes, likes to
Right.
make other people laugh, you know. And so at every stop, regardless if I was like in you know, had a poor farmer's wife who just lost her babies in a miscarriage, or if I was a prisoner in a, you know, with no light, I still wanted some jokes in there, you know?
Yeah.
So
So I guess we should go into like what Allison's talking about.
yeah.
Everybody's gonna be like, she wanted to put what where?
Now we
Um,
need another person to tell Allison to
yeah,
explain herself.
um, but the outcome was good, guys. Allison did do some crying afterwards, which is good, but you did get back into your art. And
Yeah,
there
it did everything
were,
it was supposed to do in
yeah,
my life. It just at that moment, like I just wanted to have like, you know,
the
more of a hallmark. Yeah. And
yeah,
but it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And so
yeah,
like on all levels, there's like gratitude about it, you know?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and it shows like I look at it and how I view even just that recent back at how I've changed as far as like, you know, um my reactions to other people's experiences was one of
yeah.
jealousy at first, like, I don't want that, you know? But maybe that's the only child in me, I don't know. But uh now it's more like how awesome, you know,
Yeah.
like look how cool things can get. Tell me more.
Tell me
Let's,
more.
you know,
Yeah,
That's
celebrating.
yeah.
I love celebrating other people's victories, no matter if it's little ones to big ones to you were successful of getting out of the house and going grocery shopping. This is
Yeah.
amazing. You know what I mean? Like I
It's
love celebrating other people's victories. Um, so okay, so you said a lot. That's why it's awesome that we do this, because there might be people listening going, what do you mean what she put in there? So let's
yeah, explain
hear
like
what it is that I do. Yeah,
yeah.
because honestly,
And then I can
this is great because so I have a lot of services that
yeah.
I don't actually get that many clients from, for I should say, until they do experience it. Because nobody knows what the hell
See, I'll
nobody knows.
I'll be like, I don't know what I'm going in for, but I'm ready, you
Yeah,
know?
you're ready.
Yeah.
Um, so what the karmic timeline cleanse is okay. So our I try to explain to people that our timelines, like who you are right now, is connected to all of our past lives of this current life. Like I'm gonna maybe try not to get into like parallel dimensional
Yeah,
selves and
that's
stuff. Let's
yeah,
just look at where we're at here, right?
for my
Well,
sake too.
yeah, right. So that think of an old phone cord. And even the young people have never seen a phone cord. I'm sure they've seen some kind of meme or
Yeah.
something. Spiral, right? It's a spiral. That is kind of how our past lives are connected with the current one. And what can happen is usually around how someone dies. I mean, that's usually what is being cleaned up, because if it's a hardcore tragic death or even a slow, painful death, we tend to tell ourselves horrible things as we're dying. It's traumatic, right? And death is a very singular individual experience. You know, my dad used to say, you come into this world with you and you're going to leave with you. You better take care of you, because it is, even though we come out of the womb, that's us coming, that's
Yeah.
us entering, that's our individual self. Same with exiting, it's us leaving. So it's a very personal, individual, singular event. So that's why he would say that. So you better take care of you. You come first. Because if those are the two biggest events in your life, you are in that entire mix between, right?
Mhm.
So in that spiral, leading up to who you are in your life today, what can happen usually at death or horrible circumstances, situations, um, what will happen is in that energetic, everything is energy. Everything is energy. That will leave a crud, a negative energetic impact in that particular past life. Well, because everything is energy, and as we were kind of talking about at the beginning when you said, you know, I just have to keep learning these damn lessons. I just keep repeating the same stuff. Oftentimes it's because that then horrible event imprints some kind of negativity, and that negativity then just keeps filtering through the lives that precede it, or you know, or after it. um and so it could be little things, little behaviors that we don't even thought patterns, um that actually, you know, many times it's thought patterns that people have. They're not really sure where they come from, because nothing in life really maybe, you
Yeah,
know,
lines up to
developed
that.
it. Yeah, what had caused it, that really comes from 4, 5, 6 lives ago. But it's that little bit of negativity that is imprinted into our psyche of now, into our consciousness of now. So what I do a lot of the heavy lifting for folks. It's
Yeah.
actually physically exhausting too. That's why I never do events. Like I never do like, I'm doing a whole day of, quantum, or not quantum, but timeline cleanses, because it's just physically hard on me. What I do, this is this is the hard point. Actually, somebody's pointed out to me, Allison, that I have tried to explain this before, and they've stopped me a million times and go, "What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?" So this is where you come in
Okay.
case
I'm ready.
you're saying some stuff that it's like, what do you mean by that, Court? I've always had the gift of sight. Let's say that I've always had the gift of sight. I was born with it. I was born with many gifts, but that was the gift that I never let go of. I actually developed it more. Yes, Miss Allison.
Does that mean that you physically see, or is it more like a mental image?
It's more of a mental image, but it's very rare to have somebody that has that kind of actual gift. It's beyond just like psychic, right?
Right.
And you can and if you're capable of also traveling, let's say to the astral, which we know here at Stars of the Morning Light. I do not agree with anybody going to the astral. The reason I bring it up though is that most people first learn that they have the gift of traveling by going to the astral. The astral is it's the hellish dimension. It's all bad. It's trickery. It's manipulation. It's bad. Unfortunately, though, people, when they first realize, oh, I just went somewhere and saw some shit, it's usually the astral. Okay.
Yeah.
We just don't want to keep going there because they're trying to trap you. I need to put that out there. But let's imagine, in the best way that I can describe to kind of put visuals to people, let's say if we are on the earth plane, the astral's like up here, and okay, where people are going there and it's not good. Let's just say maybe a level above or even a level above that would be more like the ethereal. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, is that an accurate description of what exactly is? Not really, but it's a way so people can kind of get a visual as to what's going on, right? What is in the ethereal is creation in a lot of ways. Not the true full original creation, but it's where, like if we in Emerald Tablets, when we talk about other beings forming out of the formless, or like the Akashic, the intersection of infinite possibilities is there more in the ethereal, let's say. So is everybody's timeline. So I am able to quote unquote go there, and this is all conscious level. Remember, consciousness is frequency. I am able, from my body and conscious level, match my frequency with the ethereal, match my frequency with the Akashic. And because I have the gift of sight, I can see what's going on.
Right. Okay.
So I'm trying to explain this in the best kind of like.
Well, like I you know, Pinterest some stuff somewhere, and it was like showed the actual frequencies. Not that they know anything, but like the actual frequencies of like the ethereal and and like different levels of consciousness, and how like they go above like the crown chakra, and there's several more colors, and
Yes, exactly. So for anybody that so many people kind of, they're like, oh, I want to open my third eye. I want to open my third eye. I want the Kundalini, right? I want the Kundalini. Well, I got, I'll say it over and over again. I love everyone, you beautiful stars, you beautiful beings. The Kundalini is just the beginning. I mean, once that quote unquote snake rises and your third eye, Mal, here's another thing. Everybody look at the camera real quick. Your third eye is right there, where the Hindus put their The third eye is right here. This up here is actually more of a star consciousness. So that's why I often go like this, the star consciousness. So you can open up your third eye and put on your new glasses to start having sight of more of the 5D, the more of possibilities in life,
Mm-hmm.
But the goal really is then to take that snake, because we don't need to live in any form of reptilian anything, right? Take that was ingrained then into us humans. You, master sovereign self, can then take that snake and take it right out. It does not need to be there anymore at all. And that's when you level up to more of your star consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you can open up your crown. Everybody's like, oh, I have a crown. Open that bitch up, activate that. You know what I mean? And
it's the lotus flower, right?
Yes, the whole cosmos can open up. And so, quote unquote, let's just say Courtney's able to do all that, and I kind of I already came here prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've been here a very long time. Been here for a very long time. Let's say that. So what I do though, and I'm glad we're actually talking about the timeline cleanses, because even let's say I go to the Akashic and I do a reading for somebody in the Akashic, right? Human free will still overrides everything that I might say to that person.
Right.
I could give them tons of, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is the possible outcome. This is your best possible outcome. That person can then walk away and do whatever the hell they want. I have no control over human free will, So what I really do love doing the timeline cleanses, because it ends up, the outcome is actually not about you, Allison, or about me. I'm literally cleaning up and transmuting and taking the negative that has been going throughout all of the lives, and I'm getting rid of it. I'm cleaning it all up for people. And if you can change the energy, then the current life that person's living will automatically start improving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not up to human free will after that, really. It's about, okay, you're free to go do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So what I do is, oh gosh, this is even more where it starts getting tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, how do you sum it into like a paragraph? Well,
so because I can travel, because I can see, because of all this stuff, clairvoyant and all this stuff, I actually go to that person's timeline.
Yeah, we can use me. I don't mind. We can use me as an example. Like
I'm hoping you remember yours more.
Yeah, I know. Come on and tell me all the exact. Yeah, I remember enough.
Yeah, once I come back and it's like 3D. Oh man.
Yeah, don't worry about it. No, I was prepared. We started off like, I really didn't have that much of like trauma to me. You said there was only a few stops you had to make. And in the earlier lives, I had been a mother with a lot of miscarriages and a lot of like early child death, and there was a lot of sorrow for that. And I wanted like roses, and I think like a cradle, and then jokes.
Oh, okay, so let's pause. Yeah, because so people can. But thank you for triggering my memory. So
that's my job today.
Thanks. First of all, I actually had a client last week that had her first timeline cleanse, and as I'm giving her the consultation at the end, she went, "Oh man, I seem to have a lot of trauma in my past lives." And I turned to her, I said, "Well, on a normal, usual timeline cleanse, I can clean about 3 to 4, hardcore things that need to be cleaned, right? From various, however many back it goes, right? But I turned to her and I said, sweetheart, I'm telling you about the negative because that's what I'm cleaning. There were tons of lives in between the first one I did to the second one I cleaned up. There were a ton of lives in between that I never talked about, or, I just, because it wasn't traumatic. I'm here to do the heavy lifting. I mean, guys, it can be disgusting. So, and I appreciate the fact that people stuff, I keep everybody's secrets, and I am able to see all the trauma, but I'm not the type of empath that then takes that on.
Right.
That's why I do what I do, because why would you clean up good lives or decent lives? I'm
Right.
cleaning up the worst of the worst, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at the beginning, let's say I'm kind of like hovering, hanging out in front of that person's timeline. Well, how Allison was just saying about like what she wanted to put in, it's because first I double check this is that human's timeline, but then I call in what I refer to as someone's essence. Other esoteric schools would call it like your 12th dimensional self, or I refer to as your essence, your other plane self. Okay. Rudolph Steiner talks a lot about this stuff. Even Manly P. Hall does. I just use the word essence because it's easier. Because is it attached to your consciousness? Of course. Is it hanging out with you nonstop here in the 3D? No, it is in a different conscious frequency. So, but I refer to it as their essence, so it's more gentle on people to be like, okay, this is actually a part of me. I call them in to help me, not to do any of the heavy cleaning. That's so my job. But because it is a cosmic law, and people aren't listening to the Emerald Tablets on Fridays. It is a cosmic law that you can't take something away without it being replaced with something else.
Right.
This is why when we think about like, yeah, I mean, we all should get to the point that we are creating, just in our hands. Something goes, it's replaced automatically with something else, right? It's actually a cosmic law. We just haven't, as humans, developed how to utilize that concept well enough yet, right? In form of creation. So am I still on track, sweetheart?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So I work with that person. I call that person's quote unquote essence in. It's just a higher dimensional self that is an aspect of that person.
Right.
Because so I'm cleaning out all the gunk, I'm cleaning out all the negativity, because I am not that person's consciousness nor attached to that person's consciousness. It is not my job to figure out what would they like to replace it with. I can't do that. I can't make those decisions for someone else. I have no idea. So if we're cleaning out negativity, of course we have to replace it with positivity. This is all energy. So it's that asset who kind of hangs out. I talk to them for a little bit. They're the ones that actually might show me what happened in that life. So like Allison, you mentioned one of them that I had to clean out, I'm going to assume was probably a bunch of sorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Losing children and whatnot. Yeah, that's yeah. So as I am cleaning, somebody once asked me, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Like the actual cleaning. Like, how do you do that? And I responded with my hand.
Yeah. Duh.
And they were like, what?
Yeah.
And I,
But
and then I thought,
you make this motion, and in my head, I'm thinking, you're like in a jelly somewhere, and there's like
I am.
gunk in the jelly, and you got to like scrape mold out of the jelly, and
Yeah.
then the good jelly will fill in. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
where,
It's
but that was
exact.
just the visual I got.
Yeah. And so when they were like, how do you, and I, with my hand, they
Yeah.
just put what? So, and
Well,
I'm
I go
thinking,
like this.
how else do you clean? You know, use
Yeah.
these. Um, but yeah, let's say I meet the essence and I say, hey, kind of I see the timeline before me, send me to, you know, one of the hardest areas that has affected it.
Where are we hurting? Yeah.
Yeah,
Where's the icky?
where do I got to begin? Um, and usually, so then they're the ones that will show me. They will also then be the ones to kind of show me the background as to what's happened there. They are not the ones to clean up what's going on. Now, even though it's energetically, sight wise, it will be more depending on what happens, it could be just blackness in the, let's say, the tube, like a phone cord, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
It could be just blackness. I mean, there's also, I mean, depending on what I've had people, horrible attacks, especially like if it's an animal attack or something that had like, that then it might show me more of a representation as to like what the body would have looked like as in like a timeline form. Like, so like, let's say it's right here on the curve of the timeline, right? It might look like flesh that was bitten into and then decaying and like filled with maggots and like representation of this is how much negativity you have to physically clean out, Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where Courtney actually does the heavy lifting, and it is difficult on my 3D physical body. I have to take care of myself when I do timeline cleanses. Because
Do you
yeah,
think it's like taking in toxins almost?
it's not so much taking time. It's I am there in not quote unquote this physical form, but because this physical form is attached to my higher self, quote unquote,
Mhm.
self doing this physical form will still be affected.
Oh, I
Even
get that.
I,
I just
yeah,
like,
even when I do like Akashic readings, my physical, how it reacts is I get like a frog in the throat. Because the 3D body suit or these meat suits will react to, especially if you're there too long or whatever you're doing there physically.
mhm.
It's all still connected. There is no separation. So imagine if I am in the ethereal and I'm taking these big old meat hands that I got, these meat puppets here, and huge,
Great
and,
band, by the way.
and get even bigger if I need to. Um, and yeah, man, I will get in there with my hands and just start scraping all that gunk
Scooping.
out and then transmuting it and scraping it
Now,
all.
transmuting, like
Mhm.
for the common folk, I would like to dumb that word down. That was one for me that I had to like go and look up. Like, and I don't know if we can, but like, vocabulary time for classrooms,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like transmuting means to just like move energy through and change it from one form to another, kind of
Yes.
like, but I had to like go and like dictionary that up and then equate it to, you know, and that's kind of what frustrates me a little bit about, there's so many big concepts and ideas in, we've just really dumbed it down into like small words, and like
Mm.
be in the now. That's
Oh,
such a
no.
huge friggin' concept, and, like,
I,
we've
I,
trivialized it to, like, "Just be in the now, honey." No, like, learn what that means. Sorry, that's my tangent.
no, no,
But
no.
transmuted.
Um, no, I'll address both of those tangents. So that's cool. Thank you. First of all, I'm not really a fan of saying being in the now. I do use it occasionally if I'm trying to make a point to the general public. but I'm not really a big fan of saying be in the now, because there is no such thing. Even if you, okay, here's an example. Now, it's already passed.
Right, exactly. But like
So
the
I try,
concept of
I,
being, yeah,
I try,
present in your body.
because that is actually a, like if, I'm trying to think of like an English, it's a um, present principle of, it's ongoing. So I just try to say be in the present, because the present
Is this
represents,
moment and now this one and now
it's,
this one.
it's an ongoing.
Mhm.
Um, so anyways,
Yeah, that
th-
was just my rant of like, I think it
yeah,
might slow people down in their aha moments that we've taken
yeah,
big concepts and like trivialized them down into these words that
yes,
don't
yeah,
grasp the wholeness of
it
what.
doesn't. And even like you said, transmuting. So I'm glad you brought that up. Maybe we should just all try to start saying be in the present,
Yeah,
present moment. It will change, and you roll with the moments. That's what life is, a series of moments.
and it's
Um,
also b- being in the moment doesn't mean that you have, the narrator going on in your head,
right,
you
right,
know,
right. You can
because
just
an
experience
anxious
the moment.
person's in the moment all the time, but their head is always like talking about things either in the past or in the future,
Right.
and that's also
Even-
being present. Like your mind and your body, they all have to be together in the same moment,
Right.
you know. Mind can't
Yeah.
be talking about what's going to happen 5 minutes from now or, 5 years,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
And moments then just shift to the next moment and shift to the
Right.
next. Right. Because being in the now also kind of separates the concept of what you were just saying, action, thought, all of it, all the experience. It eliminates more of the experience when
Yeah.
we're here on this earth school for experience, moment to moment, right? So transmutation,
Yes.
actually, I had somebody ask me 2 weeks ago. She was doing Reiki on somebody and she saw some stuff, right? And the person she was doing Reiki on was also another Reiki master and a very beautiful being. And she asked me, she said, I saw like this white smoke coming off of her. And she's asking me all about stuff, right? I said, well, how the feeling of when you saw the white smoke coming off of her, how did you feel okay about it? How did it look this way? Was it doing this? Was it? I asked a bunch of questions to just
Yeah.
clarify. And I said, that beautiful being was most likely transmuting her negative. So oftentimes, this is just a little side note for people. Transmutation is exactly what you said. Taking what is something of one particular energy, because all is energy. So one particular type of energy, and just changing it to another that can be used, and you can use many different forms. I mean, you can think of all the old school, we think everybody has little beakers and pots and doing this and doing that, and they're, the um druids and everything with all their little things in the caves, and I'm transmuting, metal into gold, and the alchemy of all these things, right? But the one of the biggest signs, for us just general people walking around, right, is if somewhere, you're in a moment and you're doing something and you see smoke. It could be green smoke, purple smoke, white smoke, usually. Transmutation usually will represent itself in some kind of form of smoke. That's where we get these old representations of like people with their beakers or their cauldrons or their this, because transmutation will present itself that way as smoke. That's also why, and usually it's purple, green, or white. Also, representation oftentimes with the witchy community, purple, green, or white.
Yeah.
If it's black smoke, that's still okay based on how are you feeling about these things? Are we transmuting something actually really good into something bad, which can also happen? Energy is energy.
Right.
Usually represented with some kind of black smoke. So I'm just saying for those who start delving into the esoteric, this is esoteric tea. When someone says they're transmuting stuff, it is a representation of taking the negative.
And would that be like in a meditative meditation, or like when do you, or just like washing the dishes and literally like there's a puff of smoke, or?
It could be in all different forms, but really, it's with your intention. So, like if you're in a meditation and it's like, hey, I've had some heartbreak, I want to heal my heart. In a meditation, tell your consciousness, in this meditation, my intention is to heal some stuff, right?
Yeah.
And allow the process to unfold in that meditation. But if you do see some smoke happening,
Don't freak out. You're not going to combust.
don't freak out. Just
First, don't freak out.
We represent smoke with fire, and there's been such bad negative talk around fire.
Yeah, I love it. I do candle meditation all the time.
Yeah, when fire is actually, and we'll learn in many ancient texts, even from Osiris to, others, there is a cleansing by fire, hence the smoke of transmutation.
Okay.
Water cleansing is more of a cellular conscious, very much release. But if we really are trying to transmute something, fire needs to definitely be present, hence the smoke. Okay.
Now, in my little rabbit hole dive about transmutation, so I'm here by myself and like, what does this mean and all that? And I told you I'm happy. That's why I'm excited to do this, because like, I've got notes of like questions. Now, for someone who's new to reining in their mind in meditation, because that's me, this is so new. This was a pack of wild horses, and now I finally got them tame. I can put a saddle on, but like we're still not, you know what I mean? We're still naughty. I don't have all the.
Okay.
So like under my research, I saw that like, of course, emotion, and this was one of the things that blew my mind. Just like, of course, energy into motion is emotion. You know what I mean? Like it's an energy, like, and each emotion, comes with its own vibration. And as you know, I was like trying to raise vibrations around this house and make it a high vibe kind of place.
Yeah.
And so it was talking about how to transmute the energy, or ways it can be transmuted in like low and high vibrational ways, but like crying, like the act of crying.
Lovely. That's the cleanse by water. That actually typically, that when we cry, I can't remember all the science words right now, but chemically in the body, we are releasing the negativity.
I've been a crier since way back, and so is my daughter. I
love when people cry. That is
like a good like
that is a form of cleansing, and cleansing is attached to transmutation, but it's more action than anything, right? It is
well, and then don't you always feel better after that cry when you let it all out and you just like cry and like put your whole body into it, and then when it's done, you're like, I got some stuff taken care of,
Yeah.
But then another one, I probably wrote them down somewhere, but one that really struck me was sarcasm. So I've been like they explained it as like a lower vibrational technique. A person who is a lower vibrational kind of mindset would use sarcasm to transmute their anger, or the energies. And I get it. That's my family. Like that's classic my dad and how he handles everything, passive aggressive. And then so it made me think about like my humor, and I wanted to kind of clean it up because there was a lot of like mean sarcasm and like,
Were
you
they
know,
were they referring to the word as transmuting while you were reading this stuff?
yeah, I'll look it up and I'll find it to you because like I'll send it on down because like
Because that's
I
not
don't
really,
take,
in my humble opinion, if I'm catching
and
what
I
you're laying
could have
down.
read it wrong in my heart too, like,
No. But see, that's the kind of stuff that goes on. I mean,
yeah,
that's what, like, you gotta be, um, you gotta have discernment with a lot of the new age
right.
material out there. Because
And I want to
that's not
state
really
for, I do.
transmute, that's not really transmuting. That's not really,
Uh-huh.
transmutation is a very big process. It's of course, many people's quote unquote like essences that I was talking about, they know how to do it, but it's not, crying is a release. It's a beautiful
Yeah. Like
cleansing by
sarcasm, when you put it
water.
next to the crying, it doesn't have the same, um,
Orgasm is not transmutation, it is the transmission, if they want to use that word, is the, yes, it's taking the anger
and
and
putting it out.
delivering, yeah, delivering it different to hide the fact that they're angry. Or,
Uh-huh.
you know, that's not at all
Yeah,
taking
it's
one,
it's different, and I
because
can see the difference now, yeah.
energy. You're not changing anything. You're
Right.
just masking it. You're just calling it something else.
Mhm.
Traditional, actual transmutation is having a, it could be any form of energy from emotion to a time somewhere in the timeline to, um physical, a rock, it could be physical human body, and you're transmuting it from one form of energy to another.
Right.
So if it's like, let's say, like I said, the whole, so I personally, I don't know what articles people were reading or whatnot. That's why we're doing what we do here, Allison.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
Because I'll read anything and I'll write some notes down, and I won't like, drink the tea or the
right,
Kool-Aid, but like I'm
right,
always like, is how does that work? It'll always kind of,
yeah. That's not
but now
actually,
that we explained it that way, it is and I think the person that wrote it was probably misunderstanding like one form to another doesn't mean like people, it's like turning a gas to a liquid.
yeah,
That's what
exactly. There you go. It's like turning a gas to a liquid, or yeah. I mean, it's
it
some
changes, because after a good cry, you feel better,
right,
whatever that heaviness that was on you and whatever got you to
right.
that state
That's
afterwards, you're like,
cleansing, and that's it too. A cleansing is not the same as transmutation either. It's not.
right,
It's a cleansing. It's a
right.
real. I mean, you really kind of, that's, so let's go to the timeline for a minute, back to where we
Yeah.
started. That might be able to help people understand this. And I'm really awesome, excited that we're talking about this. Because the term is used a lot. I see it in social media all over the place. And yeah,
Yeah.
people actually know what they're talking about. You can use the term cleansing all over the place. Use the term release all over the place. That's fine. Transmutation is a vastly a different concept.
Oh,
It
it's,
is,
yeah.
um, there you go, guys. That is some deep esoteric stuff that is very rare for people to actually be able to do. So in this time that we're living in. So by what its true definition is. So I'm at the timeline, right? I see a really nasty, crud, disgusting, horrible negativity that needs to be cleaned out. Okay. I, yes, with my hands, with these big hands coming towards you, right? With these hands, I will get in there and I will start scooping that negativity out before I just throw it out into the cosmos in a way, just
Yeah, what'd you do with
release
it?
it. I will usually, depending on what it is, because I also will maybe call for backup depending on how much cleaning. So my men can just kind of transmute for me instead of, because the process has to go. But let's say I have big hand of gunk. Our breath is sacred. People don't really pay attention to that as much as
Yes. Oh my gosh. Breathing.
what I can then do, because I know what I'm doing, I just blow into it and it transmutes, looks like some smoke, fire, and air. That's why I'm really excited at the time period we're moving into. It'll looks a bit like smoke, and it is now no longer that negativity. It is just what it will end up being. It doesn't see all energy. All energy. I know I've taught this. All energy is neutral. It actually has no positive or negative connotation to it at its original form. We, as creation, as with our breath, we end up putting the marker on it. That's negative. That's positive. That's this.
Yeah.
That's that. This is a whole lot of negative crud.
So you blow out an event.
So what I'll take the negative, and it's as if I'm bringing it back to its neutral state.
Right. It is what it is. It was an event on your timeline.
Just released. It's just gone. Go be what you are, energy, which is always neutral. Us humans, other beings, we put the identifying marker as to, is it going to play out negative or is it going to play out positive? And the more people can wrap their head around that, the more transmutation can actually happen. We can bring all energy right back to its natural state of neutrality. Neutral, has no identifying marker, and then flip it. Now we make you positive. We can do that in the scale of physical, mental, and emotional. What you're talking about with the transmutation that I'm assuming that article was trying to talk about was changing the mindset.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I was kind of in a different vein, but I was just trying to understand the concept beyond like what the science dictionary gave me, you know?
What I will tell you, over time, that can transmute someone's energy, right? Over time. To do it in that one moment, that is not actually transmutation. That is cleansing, releasing, rewiring the brain so you can understand all those energy. Most beings are not in the state yet of true transmutation of you can take one thing and turn it completely into another.
Oh yeah, no.
But most humans, it's because they also don't understand their sacred breath. They don't understand their power. They don't understand creation. They don't understand how energy is actually neutral, and we are the ones that are deciding what it is.
Right.
Like in all the happenings in the world today, we have vast control over. It is how are we defining the energy that circulates amongst us? So this is a very broad topic.
Yeah.
Hoping that helped though. Did that help?
Yeah, like I understand now that it is more of like what I read in the science part than, you know, some of the other areas they tried to use the terminology, and that's what I love, is being able to figure out that this word didn't really mean this fuzzy meaning. It means, you know what I mean?
You know, in the emerald tablets, you know, and I go back to that. It's not the only thing that I work with, of course, but every Friday at 11, for anybody who's listening, I'm live with the emerald tablets.
Yeah. And I'm painting.
Yeah, right. Toth references all of that he's talking about there as science magic. As science magic.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it is in my humble opinion, the science that we so-called have is very primitive. It's still extremely primitive.
I know. Yeah.
And the element of magic, quote unquote, there is really understanding how we are. There is no separation. We are creation, therefore we create all the time. It's understanding our might. Once we understand our might and what we truly are, and we bring in these concepts of science, quote unquote, that's why I go back to the ancients, not anything now. This is so primitive right now.
Right.
And we combine those two. Well, there you go. You do have Atlantis. You do have emerald tablets. You do have this. That's why it's referred to as science magic. So yes, transmutation is understanding your own might and your own sovereign self and the power we do have, especially with our breath of creation. For some reason, we gave that, like how in the Bible or the Torah, really, how the Torah will say, the breath of God was blown into humans. Well, what makes us think we don't have it then?
Right.
What makes us think that our own breath is as mighty as that? What, he blew it into us and then just it turned into crap? No. It turned into uselessness? No. We still have that. And that is creation. That is the light going through the void. That's the first thought. That is the word. Therefore, our breath, our words can do anything that we want it to. But for some reason, we're still very separated from that when there is actually no separation. So I guess I just went out on a tangent too. Look at what happens here on this esoteric tea.
we bring in a third party because I'm over here down the rabbit hole because I'm like, and maybe that's my Aries agitation right now is I'm against the man. I am against
Oh,
I
sister.
want work reform. I'm so,
Sister, the past. So I think I've actually gotten emails from people. Lots of people have contacted me that I will get back to you. I'll probably get back to them before this airs. So I hope I do. If not, I will, guys.
Set yourself up. You got to.
We are all right now. It will change by this weekend, but this weekend when this airs, I think Saturday night. It's not like we're out of the woods really, but this past week
over the hump at least.
Oh man, and it's because we are headed into another grand let's say activation period for us. And so for me this past week, and I'll speak personally that I've been very argumentative in my mind as far as damn the man, people not knowing what the hell was going on with them, all sorts of stuff, right?
And not trying to, just continuing. That's what's getting me too, is time to put a mirror up. It really is time to put a mirror up, everybody. And it's not a judgment on you, but if everybody put that mirror up and we just took a little time working on our own backyard instead of looking at someone else's,
in my last Patreon class, knowing that this was probably coming. My last Patreon class, and if anybody's listening and you like what you hear, Patreon, join Stars of the Morning Light. It's $5 or $8. I teach twice a month and there and some extra stuff. The last class, I was trying to talk to everybody about just being the observer, staying in kind of the level of consciousness of neutrality. Just observe. You don't need to tell anybody how to live their life. You don't need to allow, baggage into your life. You got to create those boundaries, but knowing we were going into what we were going into, I was trying to
get everyone prepped.
I was trying to get people prepared of if words are being said or this is happening, just observe. None of that is yours. You do not take that on, right? And it is just last night I sent somebody a text that I ended it with You know, the world is a mirror, you know, like you were just saying, hold it up to yourself,
Mhm.
which I am full of so much Scorpio that automatically ingrained in most Scorpios, that that is what they're doing constantly. Like they are always going inward.
Yeah,
Like, what's going on with me?
I think we
But
share this.
a lot of people aren't that. So I feel that, and because I know this is going to air Saturday, hopefully, if I know what I'm doing with this technology, um, things are going to change. There's still going to be some stuff, but I believe, and what I liked it, because there's never just negative without positive. There's some kind of, you know, balance going on there. So
Always a balance.
yeah, for myself, I went, okay, Courtney, yeah, you're really argumentative in your mind right now. So what is this trying to do for you? And I said, well, I think it's showing me what I'm still very passionate about, right? I
Yeah,
think it's showing me maybe a little bit of direction as to what does a community need? What does my
right.
home?
What's lacking? Where are the
Yeah,
cracks?
yeah, what's going on? What messages do you need to get out there, you know, to talk about, Courtney? Things like that. It was so just because I'm ranting and raving inside my own head doesn't mean that it's just all bad and it's like, oh, I this is, you know, anger or something. And it wasn't really anger, it was just frustration. Um, well, if you're frustrated and those triggers are there, they're there for a reason, right? They're not there for us to stew in that or combat it or deny it or, you know, address it harshly with someone else. It's there for us to go, okay, why is this still a trigger?
Mhm.
Is it something that I need to heal and release or maybe transmute if we work our way towards that? Or is it trying to identify, yeah, this is still something, this is a topic that you're passionate about.
Right.
This is where you still have a lot of care.
This still gets you bubbled and yeah.
Yeah, you right. So we have to always kind of address, you know, look at everything from all angles to get to, okay, why is this happening right now? And I believe, especially as I've seen on social media, that was happening across the board with people. And it is because of the activation, the crystalline activation that's coming mid January onward, like this weekend onward. It's going to be heavy duty. So even though there were spits and fights and here and there, and you could see stuff, it's for people to kind of work out in their mind
Mhm.
prior to that activation coming as to what do I let go and what do I keep.
I always find that those are usually times, like, depending on the situation, usually it's one of those moments where it's like, um, those are the choices that matter in your growth. You know what I mean? Are you gonna, like, do the harder thing that, it's harder, but it's like the right thing, or you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, I find that those moments are when you're making a decision that helps you along that spiral some way, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Either,
Yeah,
you back down to learning some older lesson again because you really didn't get it, or, oh,
and
you boot it up.
we've said a lot, and it kind of goes back to also moving forward. Study, meditate, and service to others. Within that service to others is service to self. And it is that cosmic law of you can't take something away without replacing it with something else.
Yeah,
And and
which is
that's
where we were
a
at the
lot.
timeline, yeah.
Yep, that's a lot of why we have mindsets like that for a few days. You know, what do we not want anymore? But then what do we replace it with
Right.
moving forward? Because forward will be a lot more action, a lot more also communicating, which is beautiful. I love it. Um, Going back to the timeline, that's exactly what's happening too. After I clean everything out
Yeah.
and I transmute it, well, then let's say I have to kind of, you know, seal it back up. So the positive energy can just start flowing. Energy flows, right? Well, then I turn to the essence and I say, okay, before everything is nice and sealed and pretty and we're getting all the positive flowing, what do you want to represent as a positive replacement of of all the negative that was here? And that's what, Allison, for you guys who are still listening, thank you for still
Hanging in
being
there.
here. Hit those thumbs up for me, please. Get this all circulated for me. Um, if you haven't subscribed yet, just subscribe. Yeah.
It costs nothing.
Yeah, it costs nothing. You might have to make your own page. I have so many friends and family, like my best friends for like 30 years, who still have not subscribed because you have to make a page. And it's like,
Oh, like an account for
you
YouTube?
have to get a YouTube account.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
And so
No,
it's,
don't let them do that to you.
you
No, I
allow.
just say that because like that's what my 70-year-old father would say. Like,
Yeah.
and you and I are the same age. We cannot have friends that are doing what my 70-year-old father is doing. Oh, if I need to make an
No.
account, forget it. It's
I
like,
know. I think some of my closest friends is like, okay.
like we bled together on the fields of
are.
war, and you're not even
Yeah.
gonna make an account for me.
It's
Okay, so
they're probably listening right now going, oh man, she's calling me out hardcore. So
hardcore.
regardless, thanks for being here, everybody. I asked the essence to then put in some kind of representation. That's when I think Allison here was talking about
The
you still
jokes.
wanted laughter. You wanted something to represent, you know, you lost the children, but a representation of the love of the children still there.
Right.
And this and that. Yeah. And then
At every step. The next one that was a hard one for me was I was a prisoner in like really, dungeon times. Like I don't know if I had light, just like a dungeon cellar somewhere, and I'd spent most of my life there, I think died there. And so I asked for a light and some jokes for that one.
jokes. Yeah. And see, and I find that obviously coming out or rehearing it now, Allison, that is who you are.
Right.
I mean, times of
and you didn't know me from Sam, so that's why I was like, holy
Right.
crap, something happened. Like, even though I didn't, and I hope it didn't sound wrong when I was like, I didn't have that moment like everyone else. I didn't know what to expect, and
I
so
think
like it sounded like Superman was going to come down from like, the crystal rock, like quantum something, you know what I mean? And I was just ready for it, but
yeah.
when we started talking and you kept saying jokes, I was like, she doesn't know me,
Yeah.
but
No.
like that's all I do,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. You're a good time. Yeah.
oh, I'm a good
Yeah.
time
You
gal. But
are
that's when I knew like we were visiting things. And then the last one that because we kept putting jokes in, the most current one to uh this current life that I'm in, I was a young woman who was in court testifying in defense of a Black man who was falsely
that was you.
accused.
I remember that, but I never
Yeah, because you had to take a moment. You were like,
you.
I'm gonna have to go to the hallway for a second.
Yeah, that was intense. That
Yeah.
was
And
that
then,
was
there was all kinds of like isolation and rejection, which still are kind of themes,
yeah.
that play out. And so it probably wasn't part of my ugly gunk. It was more of like
Yeah, so if I remember
themes.
correctly, Allison, in that life, which was more, of course, closer to your current life,
Right.
you had testified in favor of the Black
Correct.
man.
Like defending.
Right, defending him. And then the result of that is this small town just like ostracize you. No
Correct.
one is hanging out with you. And how that, so this is good that you brought up, because then how that kind of thing, negative residue, right? You then lived in entire, You never got married. You
Nope.
never had really a future. You were, but then you also then felt guilty. So then you just kind of stayed in that town. Right. You didn't know what to do. Right. So
Do you
rejection.
remember what I did?
No, I don't remember.
What I wanted to do for myself was forgive myself
There you go.
for not getting out and like trying it in a new town and being brave.
And being
And
brave. Because by that time, the amount of rejection. And remember, I teach often, especially with Patreon, fear is usually in 3 categories: either rejection, lack, or survival.
yeah,
Rejection is so strong, people. So if you have an entire life, a big part of human life, of some form of fear like
yeah,
that negativity then carry on, right? It throughout our timeline. So how that would represent in someone's life now is, and I guess I could, if I can talk frankly, Allison, your life, that was
just
a automatic feeling. I'm going to be rejected when I meet people. I'm going to feel this way, or I'm going to be rejected. Nobody's going to understand my jokes. Nobody's
well,
going
and
to.
here's something that maybe you don't know about me either, because we have just met. But my whole life, my father worked for Kodak. And so my whole life, when you got a promotion, you got a new territory to manage the sales of. And I've lived like an army brat. So
Yeah,
every 5 to 7 years, I was uprooted. And we're not talking like, the next state over. I would move from New York to California, from California to Minnesota, like cross
yeah,
country, completely, you know, ripping up roots and
yeah,
watching other
yeah,
people. I still struggle with it. Like my husband, was born and raised in the valley, and
yeah,
still like has connections with all those people. And while I have people across the country whom I love to like pieces, like family, I haven't seen them in decades, because that's
yeah.
just like and I think that
Well,
plays into it a lot.
yeah,
Like when you're the new kid and you have to, like, I learned how to assimilate and like not make waves. Just like as long as no one's looking at me, I'm safe, because I did get made fun of, especially when I
right.
first got to California. I was the weird girl from New
Oh,
York.
you just brought it into the concept of the karmic
Yeah.
aspect. So let's say, okay, in this life, Allison, this current beautiful life, Allison needs to, we talked about forgiving yourself for how you handled that, which is fine. That's why a timeline cleanse, we handle this stuff, right?
Hmm.
Not there anymore. Because in this life, you get to go and start living differently from that.
Right.
Instead of just, I know how to get by, I know how to not make waves, you can actually embrace, your goals, your dreams, your this.
Hmm.
That is the karmic residue aspect. And you most likely set it up in this life knowing, okay, I still have this overwhelming fear of rejection. It's got to get conquered at some point. Because if I don't ever get over the fear of rejection, I'm never going to be my true beautiful self.
Hmm.
So you figure it out with all your other soul contracts you have. Well, if you uproot Allison a lot every 5 or 7 years, which I didn't know was because of your dad's business. I knew you moved a lot.
Yeah.
If we uproot Allison a lot, well, that feeling's still going to be there. It's still going to be a struggle. So, but in adulthood, she's going to recognize this. She's going to understand this. She's going to understand she needs to heal this. And
Yeah.
once she goes through that process, wow, here's the fun, good time Allison that everybody really enjoys being around.
Hmm.
That I've never, you know how women talk. I've
Yeah.
never had anybody say
Say
they
a
didn't.
nasty word about
Yeah,
her.
never known anyone to say they didn't enjoy Allison. It's
Well, you're
all,
not talking to the right people, but no.
yes. So that's how karmic stuff works. We're not
Yeah.
so much talking fully about karma there, but that's to understand how this energy does keep being played out. And I do want to also say one of the things that I have to look at then when we get to your current life is all of us, our energy timelines, and then this might be another episode, are is connected to Gaia, is
Right.
connected to the planet. There's no way of getting around it, right? I wish more humans understood how vastly connected our energy is to her.
I didn't know there was like a earth chakra like
Yeah,
connection point. Like it's like
sweetie, R is the first. It's sweetie,
right
R.
below the root, or like but it
Yeah,
makes sense, but
yeah,
nobody talks about it.
yeah. We are so connected to her. We really should do an episode about
Yeah, because
humans and the earth because
she
um
deserves it.
oh, she deserves it, man. And people don't understand our vibes. Like when we say get your vibes up, vibes free, when we do that, she then heals, she then responds. I mean, I can
Mhm.
talk all day long about it because
She's actually in my notes, so maybe we do get to her
yeah,
down the way. Yeah.
yeah. But I will say, so then at the end I look to see if they are connected to Gaia well enough. Because I have met people that something so rough had happened that they're starting to, I mean, their energy is starting to separate from her. Um, but you get it right back in there. You gotta
Yeah.
cleanse it. You gotta reattach it. You gotta seal that. Um, but then I also look in relation, where is a person's conscious, their soul, and their consciousness, soul slash
Mhm.
consciousness slash soul, right? Their flame, which is also referred to as like maybe a God spark, and
Mhm.
their ego in relation to like in proximity to each other, right? It's a representation of me to understand, okay, do we need to kind of make this flame a little bit brighter? I was working on somebody a while back that I didn't even see a flame, and it kind of, not everybody has a flame, by the way. Let's pause there. Not everybody has a God spark. There were a ton of humans made by the Lemurian, Sumerian folks. I mean, we have the texts that were made, not so much created, made to dig for gold, right? Are you with me, Allison? Have you
I
heard this
am.
before?
I'm just wondering, I'm always going back to the negative bloodline, like the negative RH. So I'm just like,
No, that's not them, no. That's
yeah,
not
okay.
okay.
But you know what I
Um,
mean? Anytime I hear like another, like, I'm like, oh, like, go ahead.
yeah. No, this is that concept that we get from the Sumerian text that, yeah, we basically made humans to dig for gold. There's a lot that happened prior to that. But those humans, you can see them as just carbon bodies. Do they have a consciousness? Yes, because there has to be a consciousness
Hmm.
for these meat suits to even work, right? Do they have a consciousness? Yes. Do they have a God spark? Not necessarily. They can inherit one if they put the effort in, but that does not mean that they come from the ultimate source creation, that he blew life into them
Hmm.
as the rest of us. And we see them all over the place now, don't we? We
Hmm.
come in contact with them all over the place, don't we?
Yeah.
The ones that my own husband, a few 4 or 5 years ago, he asked me, is everybody going to get to the new earth? Can everybody evolve consciously? Or no, that's how he said it. Like, there's a lot of talk right now that not everybody's going to get to the new earth. And I said, it's true. It's not, it's true. I mean, I hate saying it, but it's something people have to accept. And he was like, well, people are saying it's because of consciousness. And I said, exactly. People without a God spark, they will only be able to get so far in their consciousness.
Dude, we've all met them.
Yes, we've all met them.
And I'm take that judgy look away. I should be like, I mean,
no, it's not. Well, they will get their own land. They will have, and especially if they're choosing that, to have that Blade Runner world, that Mad Max world. That's their choice. But that is also those who come from that particular Sumerian text. But you have to understand, they made a lot of them. They made a lot of them. And then just biology, made more.
Right.
Science magic is really just biology, or biology is just science magic, right? So I will say though, I've seen it. I'm still witnessing it. It's amazing. I do know 2 humans that did not have a God spark that have worked vastly diligently with study, meditation, gratitude, all of it. I mean, diligently, who have inherited a God spark. That can't happen. But I will tell you that will not happen with the masses that don't have it inherently. So they will most likely get the Mad Max world, which, okay, that's their destiny, right? Those that have a conscious soul, God spark, flame. I use the word flame because that's what the Emerald Tablets refers to it as, an ego. Everybody goes, why ego, Courtney?
Yeah.
So
I've done a lot of
So because ego is so much of this body. Ego is so much of his body. Ego is actually not a bad thing, unless it's unproportioned and blown out of proportion, right? And driving the car instead of being a team player and helping us. Ego is actually there to help us identify our needs, our fears. It's a safety. It is there. If we are attached to Gaia, the ego needs to be there. I will tell you, in other areas, like in the ethereal, ego is not present. But if we are here attached to Gaia, ego is going to be there. But what will happen is I'll see, like, okay, somebody's consciousness and their flame are closely next to each other. Good. I love it. So they are kind of working in their heart space a bit. They are kind of understanding they're a part of the grand source. Okay, cool. I love it. But then their ego could be like way ahead of them. That is so unhealthy, because then that still means we're letting the ego make the decisions. We're letting the ego drive the car. We're letting the ego have a bunch of the arguments. And ego is very also attached to any damage if we have inner child work to do. So what I can also do with the timeline cleanse is if I see stuff like that, or ego, I did one once that I couldn't even find the ego. And I was like, that's not possible. Not possible.
That shit's so far gone.
Yeah, that's not possible. And it was as if the ego was like out tethered somewhere, like it's hanging out. And here's the thing with that is from those people who are so fearful about having an ego, they try to strip themselves of it and not operate an ego at all, which leaves them completely vulnerable to, you might as well just go join a cult, because you have no defense system. If you think you're going to strip it away and like, get rid of my ego, no, that's the most ridiculous thing to do. It is keep it right size, keep it proportioned. You are sovereign. You drive the car, not your ego. It's in the back going, we might not want to drive down that alley. Yeah, it's probably not the best idea. you know, you got some feelings about that there, a little bit of a trigger. Let's look in all these mirrors in our car to see what's going on. I mean, it's there to help. Um, but a few times there's been people that I met that is like they wanted to strip it away entirely. And you can't do that in this 3D
I
even
think I was one of them when I first met you, because
word.
where I was at in my life, I was just really trying to look for ways of like grasping and understanding what was coming at me each day with the world. And I got, you know, really into Eastern philosophy, and I still am. I really appreciate
Yeah.
like the aspects of it, but like I was twisting it wrongly. And I see now after, because like when you were talking to me at first, I'm always like, and then
Yeah.
as life kind of teaches, you just like, oh shit. And then, your little voice saying, your ego's too small. You need to, it's too far out
Well,
there.
it's too far out. So that's
So
it's
mine was
either
way,
or.
way
It's
out there. And
yeah.
a lot of it was because I was trying to like be so non-resistant and so unattached that I just was like, just let the life, it can't rock me if you're rocking with it, was my philosophy. But
Yeah.
now, as you know, I float above it in my Cadillac. So,
Yeah, there you go, sister. That's right. You
yeah.
know, I, and I'm everybody here at Stars of the Morning Light that have been listening for a while. The only reason I can really talk about this is not just because I know the Eastern and Western idea, all of it, is because it's usually either or. Usually somebody tries to diminish their ego down to, wow, I could manipulate the hell out of you if I wanted to. Why? Because
Yeah.
my ego was so inflated that for a big portion of my life, the only thing you were ever talking to was my ego.
Yeah.
So, and that's usually how the world works. It's egos talking to egos. It's egos talking to egos. But there is that random case that, and I've actually known them more so than not, that you just said you were working with, that because of what we hear and think, we start to try to get rid of the ego. We can't do that when we are still here attached to Gaia. It is not, you can try, but it is not, I do not recommend it because it leaves you vulnerable for all energy to just bat you around like a cat would bat a mouse around if it wanted to.
Mhm. Yeah.
The ego's there to help us with that, and I mean all kinds. It could be spiritual, metaphysical, real physical manipulation in any way. I mean, if we get rid of the ego, oh yeah, anything could bat you around like a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that is, if anything, a warning for people to understand. If you're here on this planet, there's going to be an ego. So what we do is we cleanse it. We keep it right size. We don't let it drive the vehicle. We don't let it speak our words, as in I'm right and you're wrong. Um, so
I think in order to control your ego, you have to do that inner work. You have to do your inner child work.
yeah,
Um if none of that resonates with you, then you have to dig into Carl Jung and like do some shadow work, because
yeah,
everybody,
have
you know
to
what I
do,
mean? Before
yes,
you can even understand how to cleanse your ego, you got to understand when it's acting ugly, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And what that's most people don't. Well, I'll say this, and a lot of people go, "Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know."
Right. It's one of those
But to
be in the
have
now.
that
Yeah.
full acknowledgement and not mask it with anything, oftentimes it is inner child work that's needed.
Hmm.
Our inner child. So, first of all, your intuition and your ego are very closely related, and people might not know that.
No.
So, oftentimes when it's like, work with your intuition, work with your intuition. Well, your ego, if it's too big, it's gonna it's gonna tell that intuition, yeah, tell them this, tell
Yeah.
them that. And that's where you
Hmm.
get a lot of people manipulating. You get a lot of people saying stuff. You get a lot of people getting into paranoia because it's really the ego that's in hardcore survival mode, telling the
Mhm.
intuition, this is what's happening.
Mhm.
Um, so anyways, but a lot of it too is those of us who trauma in our childhood, even if it's low key trauma, trauma is trauma. Um,
Just behavioral patterns,
yes,
things
it's the
that
child in that needs the healing is
the
like, hey,
moving around did
oh,
stuff that,
yeah,
is only
yeah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
It's like you got the ego driving the car, the child right next to him, and those two are just having a
Oh, yeah.
good old time making our decisions for us as an adult. Make you know,
Screwing
just
stuff up for a while.
action and
Yeah.
reaction amongst walking around in this world as we're sitting in the back seat going, holy, how did that happen again?
This is a
Oh my
dumpster
God,
fire. Oh,
uh,
no.
when am I ever going to stop doing that?
Yeah.
So there is work that needs to be done. It can be done though. I do.
But I just like to state
I
those things because those are sometimes the dumb things I have to Google, like how do you cleanse an ego, or what does, that even mean? Well, it means basically like keeping it in check, right?
keeping
Keeping
it in
everything
check.
balanced, like the yin matches the yang.
Yeah.
And that's another important concept of like that everybody just, oh, balance is important. No, it's like crucial.
Yes.
Balance is crucial in everything in the universe, and we really discount it. And
Yeah.
I
Order and
mean,
is the law of the cosmos, really. Um, I actually have a video, probably way down in my videos. It was like the third one I did, so I might revisit that at some point about the ego, about cleansing it.
I just watched it, yeah, because
Oh,
you
cool.
actually like we only had at the end of my reading, it was intense and we were eating up on time, and you were trying to tell me that my ego was, out of whack, but you're
Yeah,
like,
bring it
just
back.
go to
Yeah,
my I got a whole thing on how to cleanse it. Go there because I got bigger issues. And then you moved on to like the most current
I was like, yeah,
time.
very much your ego. There's something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That often happens with me. Like, oh, what you think is a big deal is not what's the
Well,
Um,
like that's a big topic. That's like a half hour minimum session of like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we need to do. This is how you
yeah,
identify. You know what I mean? Like it isn't
yeah,
like okay, so you go to Target and you get this scrub and then you're done.
yeah.
Like it's a process. So I understand. And like we should readdress it because I think people don't understand how much their ego comes in and drives when they think
Yeah.
they are, in charge
And
and stuff.
maybe that's actually a good suggestion because that was like my third video ever.
Yeah, it really
To the
was.
point that I didn't even know, like, okay, Courtney, if you turn the camera the other way, it'll be full screen. I mean, it was that.
I think
It
at
was
one point
that
you knocked the camera
what I was
down. You're
doing.
like, yeah, it was great.
So,
I was watching. I painted to it, so I just recently heard. But no, yeah, like um, that needs to be understood because you can get people like me who are in a place of suffering and they're just like looking for a way to and you can just get that one little thought that's like twisted wrong and then you're on this weird path that's not really the right direction of like
yeah,
spent a lot of time trying to be, completely non-resistant and non-attached, and whatever happened and what's mine will come to me, and and it's just like a really doormatish way of life now. I understand that, but back then it was like that's how I can cope with
yeah,
anything unpleasant is I'll just
yeah.
bend with it, you know.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. A lot of people that do go that route, that are like, oh, this is ego, and I have to start. Is that Hadley in the room? I see
It's
you.
tab.
Smiling. Um, those who do end up going that route often it's because, well, I see it as two parts. A, they're big time empaths, like feeler empaths. So they know even more so what it feels to cause somebody else pain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they try to diminish their ego so their ego is never the one to cause somebody else pain.
Uh-huh.
But also because of the pain that they feel, they come up with these concepts. Well, if I just roll with it, if I, don't attach myself to anything, my pain won't be as severe.
Right. And that's what it was. Cause all life
Yeah.
is suffering. And so if you
Yeah.
can,
Right.
the only
Right.
way to get away from suffering, is to do these things. So I was like, I'm gonna do it to 11,
Do it. Yeah, exactly. And then they do it overboard. And
Right.
like that, I mean, I've met people that unfortunately they were in like an ashram cult. They had no concept that they were in a cult until years later. And I'm in conversation with them. And I was like, oh, okay. So what cult? Just saying that word triggered them to go, was I in a cult? Because they were that manipulated,
Mm-hmm.
that controlled, because it is taught to strip that ego away to the utmost, when that ego should have been there and went, yeah, why am I working and not getting paid?
Yeah.
That ego should have, you see what I'm not, this is
Yeah.
not against them, the people that
No, it's what we do to cope.
but it's with teachings like that, which the problem is too, is many people don't do their own study. Many people don't do their own research into what is really happening with those teachings, the OG teachings. That's why we do ancient here at
Mm-hmm.
Stars of the Morning Light. The OG teachings, there was more going on than what is presented today.
Oh,
Today
definitely.
is
Yeah.
to strip that ego away, so you will work for nothing. So you will do this. So you will give all your money away.
Yeah.
And so, and then there's people like you, Allison, that maybe weren't associated with groups like that, but thought it would be the best way to handle all the crap that happens in life and that I take in and I don't know what to do with. And this is going to be my protection, when the ego is our protection. But like I said, with most of us, it's either black or white. It's either we try to make it not existent, or we blow it up out of proportion into the I'm going to get you before you get me mentality.
Right.
Right. When none of that should be present. So I guess closing this up, hey Tab, I know you're in the room, buddy. With the timeline, I then look at that and I make sure everything's in the right. So the ego should be before, as if it's traveling before us.
Yeah, it's like our shield, like Star Trek, like force field.
Yeah. So that's fine. It's if it's like in the car in front of us or not in the back seat, and it's like doing all the control.
Right, really doing the reactions. Yeah.
So, well, Miss Allison,
I loved it. I had a great time, and I've got plenty more subjects. So if everyone loves it, let's do it some more, because
yeah,
I got plenty of questions and I know you got plenty of answers, and we can get there together.
yeah, together,
Yeah.
exactly. And
I hope that I did help in the way that, like somebody who sees a lot of the terminology out there and who is doing a lot of like solo searching spiritually, is, I hope I'm kind of tapping into like questions they would want to,
oh, yeah. I think maybe this is just sometimes I perceive it this way, and I know it's not true, but everyone does. We do need others, no
Yeah.
matter no matter who we are, how ascended we are, quote unquote. And I need others to help me with it. I mean, sweetheart, like how we stopped and talked about the transmutation.
Yeah.
I would have kept on going.
Yeah.
I just kept on going as if everybody knows what's coming out of Courtney's mouth.
Yeah, that's one of those subjects that I knew for sure. I was like, we're gonna have to stop because I had to Google it.
Awesome. Yeah, I
Yeah.
need help because, as I've said here, I was raised with a lot of this stuff, and I've been like I was taught meditation at 8 years old, and I just kept going. I started teaching it by the time I was 20. I mean, I've got years of stuff. I was given my first tarot deck at 9 years old. I mean, I got a lot of time. of in various studies and various things. A lot of the books that I read from on here, they were literally on the bookshelf growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to know. I literally, you can't, like, if you're kind of up here thinking and operating, I want to serve the best I can, no matter where anybody else is at. But I
Exactly.
help to identify as
And I
to
hope to
what,
represent the
yeah,
lower
what
levels.
people need. So no, I appreciate it. And anybody else who's listening, I'm more than willing to have you do what Allison's doing here. Ask me questions if you're willing to record, because I get DMs constantly. If you're
Yeah.
willing to record, um, I would appreciate it, because it's hard. It's hard to, well, get people that would be willing to be on film. Um, and everybody's like, I need a topic, and it doesn't matter.
What do you want to know? Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, we could talk about anything, and I'm sure I'll turn it into some woo-woo something, you know? So I appreciate you, Miss Allison. I really do.
I had a great time. I hope this all turns out good for you, and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll be here again. Definitely.
excellent. Well,
Yes.
Tab was all excited. He's like, that could be fun getting research topics. I said, "Hun, I'm already good there, but I'll
Yeah.
let you know."
Yeah. Allison sent me a lot of texts of like, look at the notes that I'm taking. I went, this is amazing. That's many a shows.
I know, and it's like, for what though? So for this,
Yeah.
because I've always been like, why am I writing this? No one will. My children will find this and think I'm psychotic. Well, like after I'm dead and gone, and they're cleaning out the house.
Oh, and
But
well, what's freaky is like this will probably still be there. So they'll be like, oh, that's
yeah, I'll be
fine.
like, kids, reference the Black Notebook.
Yeah, right. And
That's where I
everyone,
was.
I will put Allison's Etsy store on here. I know you can't see that where my camera is. She's an amazing artist, guys. She
Thank
really is.
you.
She's
I
got
will.
for sale there that very reasonable price. Like, whoo, sister. I mean, you could even kind of bid up, but
I
very
know. Well, let's
reasonable,
get some visibility and some
volume.
traction, and then I'll start getting
Exactly.
greedy.
And then those here at Stars in the Morning Light, that's another thing. Beautiful beings like Allison and I, we tend to, make things a bit cheaper for you so you can enjoy.
Yes,
Same with, yeah, same with my Patreon, $5 or $8. You'll get some great lessons there. So, Miss Allison, thank you, my dear.
much love. Mwah, mwah.
Mwah. And everyone listening, you are a star. Shine beautifully and have a lovely week, guys. Namaste.